Hello again, wrestling fans. This is a slightly sunburnt Tom Colohue bringing you today's SmackDown review for the show that happened last night on the 29th of May. In the review today we talk about Jeff Hardy and his return to a storyline that's far too close to life, Kurt Angle and Matt Riddle, and of course a wonderful match between Cesaro and Chad Gable, who I will never ever call Shorty G. We start with a sitcom style cold open that is a little bit darker than you might expect. Elias is shown to have been hit by a car. Officers are searching the car. Renee Young is at the scene and they identify that it is Jeff Hardy's rental car. Braun Strowman is shown to be an eyewitness there, and then they find Jeff Hardy way down the road, smelling of alcohol and a little bit worse for wear, big hit on the head. They made some efforts to make this a very realistic looking scene. Particularly I do like the woman in the background who is filming on her mobile phone, as well as some other small aspects. They do take care of Elias, and Braun Strowman sells the moment pretty well. That said, there were a couple of confusing moments. For example, the police officers not wearing gloves when checking the evidence in the car, and Renee Young being told to keep back, whereas the producers, Jason Jordan, Jamie Noble, were there to help Jeff Hardy out. Jeff Hardy is subsequently arrested. We will see how that develops later in the night. As a result of this, Elias and Jeff Hardy, who were supposed to be in semi-final matches of the Intercontinental title tournament, have been pulled. That means that neither man will be competing on this night, robbing us of some interesting looking matches. The question for me really is it right to go back to Jeff Hardy's known issues with alcoholism and other substance abuse problems? They keep bringing this up. He's been defined so heavily by this in so many different WWE storylines. Can we not just let the guy be a good wrestler for a change? I also think it's quite telling that Braun Strowman was there as a sole eyewitness. The automatic assumption is that Sheamus is setting Jeff Hardy up, and they suggest that later on. However, Braun Strowman being the only eyewitness means that he should definitely get questioned, if you ask me. This is followed by quite a big argument as to what to do next backstage. Daniel Bryan wants an opponent, AJ Styles does not, so they go with a battle royal for everyone who is there at the time. This is 10 wrestlers, many are not featured. I'm guessing maybe some people are in the bathroom. Telling by his absence Mustafa Ali. It will be interesting to see what part the SmackDown hacker might play in this later on. Also, after this segment, everyone walks away apart from Bryan and AJ Styles. I've got to say, I love that their competitive nature is starting to develop into an actual real bromance friendship. I really quite enjoy it. The Battle Royal is pretty much instantaneous after we come back from break and take the rest of the first half hour. There's a couple of good moments for people who haven't been featured much recently. Jey Uso being one of them. With Jimmy injured, he is featured here and is the second to last participant, so good showing for him. Chad Gable as well sets up something later in the night. They managed to reuse a couple of superstars here, which is good overall when you consider how few people they have on their rosters at the moment. Drew Gulak does return here, is featured, but he's featured quietly. Sheamus ends up picking the win, setting up Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus for the main event for the Intercontinental Championship semi-final of the tournament later in the night. There are two backstage segments back to back. Firstly, Sonya Deville talks to the camera before being attacked from behind by the heelish Lacey Evans, who is the face here. It's actually quite a good moment from Lacey, and because of the way Sonya Deville has been quite aggressive recently, that's part of her heel turn. It shows that there might actually be some fire to a feud that's come out of nowhere after all. They did well building this, especially considering they didn't build this. The other segment is between Chad Gable and Cesaro. It's not often Cesaro is given the chance to have a bit of conversation himself. He's able to speak. He belittles... I'm sorry, that wasn't supposed to be a short joke. He talks down. There's no way to say it. He says bad words to Chad Gable, who reacts, hits Cesaro. Nakamura stands there watching it happen and then holds Cesaro back afterwards. Clearly he just likes it when people are in pain. And a match is set up for later in the night between Cesaro and Chad Gable, which is an exciting prospect, let's be honest. Before that happens, we have Lacey Evans versus Sonya Deville. I've got to say, Lacey Evans has been fantastic since turning face officially. A lot of this comes down to all the pressure that's been taken off her. Now she's no longer in any sort of main event feud like she was with Becky Lynch. That was a steep jump up, and now she's settled down into more of a relaxed period. This was a very good match, very aggressive, both women putting their hair up and really showing they mean it. It did result in a double count out, but the fight did continue briefly afterwards. It was a bit of a rough table spot. Sonya Deville's back will be feeling it today. This is one of very few times we've seen Sonya Deville without either Mandy Rose or Dolph Ziggler. So one of the first times she's really been trusted to stand alone. She excelled in it. I was very happy with what she managed to do. She has new merch, it was on her belt, for Pride Fighter. Now, it was a good design, and I like how they're using her sexuality in a positive manner. She is, of course, very positive about it. What I will say is this might not be the time, given that she's now a heel. It's a very positive message to send. So I feel they really can't focus on it, and that's why it was on her belt, but she didn't, for example, wear it and promote it. Maybe we'll get a face turn back soon. I can't see it personally, but that t-shirt definitely suits face rather than heel. Commentary did make a lot of mentions of Bayley as a champion, how these two women might be building towards that. This could end up being a number one contendership feud, which will be good for either woman. I could see Deville winning that, but it also says how convincingly Deville won her feud with Mandy Rose that they're no longer mentioning Mandy Rose. Maybe they'll pick that feud back up when one of those women is a champion. Also, as a slight aside, another merch point, Lacey Evans now has the American flag on her handkerchief, so expect to start seeing them get sold in the shop soon. There is another backstage promo for the Forgotten Sons. They still haven't stepped in the ring, and it's not too late to get them on the card for Backlash, but it is starting to get too late. The same is true of these promo segments. They started off quite impactful, but at this point we are starting to repeat the same things. I would like to get them in the ring soon. The New Day open the second out in a moment of bliss. They're also energetic and positive and great talkers that I feel this was a really fun segment, especially when shortly afterwards they added Bayley and Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks managed to play off the rumoured backstage heat between herself and Alexa Bliss very powerfully, and it led into a match. These two have great chemistry, so it was a very good match. I also have to give a shout out to the armbands. The New Day will usually wear an armband for Xavier Woods with an X and a W while Xavier Woods is injured. This time they wore something in tribute to Shad Gaspard. Additionally, Sasha Banks wearing an armband for Hana Kimura. Respect has to be shown for the showing of respect that they did that. Commentary was magnificent for this match and barely functional. Nikki Cross did what Nikki Cross does, high energy, always talking, always putting people down, particularly Bayley in this spot, and Michael Cole and Corey Graves were unable to even get into the conversation. There were shots where Michael Cole was corpsing so badly that he literally could not function, and Corey Graves eventually just gave up live on air, actually said he was just giving up. Nikki Cross is fantastic. She was standing on the table for a while, and given that they're designed to flat pack immediately, the opposite of an IKEA table, I was stunned she was able to stay on the table without it automatically breaking, but I suppose if Cole and Graves are holding it up, they were at least able to carry some part of the segment. Sasha Banks earned the win after a bit of a scrap outside between Bayley and Nikki Cross. I would love to see Nikki Cross get another title shot. It's been a while. However, this time last year Bayley was defeating both Bliss and Cross in a handicap match, so maybe not just yet. Cesaro versus Chad Gable is 5 or 6 minutes of utter joy. If you haven't watched this match, you really should go back and watch it. Intense, good story, really focusing on Cesaro's leg with a lot of counters involved. The powerbomb counter was tremendous. The finish, roll up, Chad Gable getting the win, also great. No interference from Nakamura, letting these two just have a wrestling match. Great work, brilliantly done. I do feel the Shorty G name has run its course though. Hopefully they follow up with this. Good showing for Chad Gable. We haven't seen him for a while. I would like to see more. We then start with the rush of backstage segments before the main event. Firstly, not backstage but filmed separately, we have Otis and Mandy Rose having fast times at a swimming pool. This was different. I will say in a positive way, sometimes these segments don't hit me right, and I did feel when we started to drift into dream sequence that this would be one of them. but they played it off as nice comedy, and it does seem we're steering away from everything with Rose and Deville into something different. This was the only time Otis was on the show, like Braun Strowman didn't feature much either, so it was nice to get him involved in a different manner. Otis really lends himself to these segments. What I will say, there was a moment with sun cream, or sunscreen depending on where you're from, with a squirt that will be replayed for decades. Also, I've never known anyone as thirsty as Mandy Rose was in this segment. You got the man, you're clearly really happy about it, all power to you. I hope you two are having a great time. Kurt Angle both announced and endorsed Matt Riddle, who will be moving to SmackDown. Likely we won't see him wrestle for a couple of weeks, probably after Backlash once again when he can start a storyline, and it does look like he will be starting a storyline with Sheamus once again as the gatekeeper. With Styles and Matt Riddle now added to the SmackDown roster, SmackDown may have got the leg up over Raw. It's been a while since I've been able to say that. When you consider that Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn are expected back eventually, SmackDown is in an incredibly strong point. That does raise a question though. Maybe Roman Reigns will not be returning to SmackDown, but to Raw instead. There is certainly enough star power now to make do on SmackDown without him. There's a number of possible matches for Matt Riddle, Chad Gable, Daniel Bryan, Cesaro, AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura. I would love to see a match though between Matt Riddle and Sonya Deville, because of that, the MMA styles, the brutality, the strong style they can deliver, that'd just be a great match. The most important part of this vignette though, with Matt Riddle confirming that he will not at any point, now that he has moved to SmackDown, develop a sudden need to wear shoes. You heard it here first, folks. Matt Riddle will not wear shoes. There is a recap of the Braun Strowman versus The Miz match from last week and the subsequent move into a match at Backlash against Miz and Morrison. This is the only appearance of our champion and his upcoming opponents. So I think it's good that they were able to step back and give the IC Championship tournament some focus, give another women's match on the card, and really get Chad Gable on the card and Cesaro. That was a great match. So I think it's good they were able to step back, give more focus to some different talent. At the same time, I'm glad they got them on the card, because wrestling fans unfortunately have notoriously short memories. The semi-final for the Intercontinental Championship tournament, once again, main events SmackDown. They have really focused on this title. I would like to see it a bit more. It's been missing for a while. However, they've done really well with this tournament, making the IC Championship feel like a big deal. Especially when you consider that after a strong back and forth match, we saw Jeff Hardy return, distract Sheamus, Daniel Bryan with the win, and Daniel Bryan will face AJ Styles in a monumental match for the Intercontinental Championship. It was not long ago these two were feuding for the WWE Championship. That shows how high a regard they are giving to this championship. A decent amount of time was given to the main event. It was lovely having a crowd have a yes chant again. I mentioned Jeff Hardy returning. Clearly he wasn't arrested for any sort of drunk driving, because they would not have released him that quickly if that is true. They would have stuck him in the cells and he would have been told to sober up. He attacked Sheamus after the match, kept that going. Jeff Hardy was the one who stood tall at the end. Their match at Backlash, which hasn't been announced yet but likely will be soon, certainly got a little bit more personal. This SmackDown was very impressive. High pace from start to end. The women's division got a very good showing. That said, the tag division, though represented both in women's and men's, there were no matches and they didn't get too long to talk at any point. The women's tag match certainly is built up a lot higher, but we still don't have any sort of tag championship match for Backlash. The champions this time, however, were featured. They were not last week. In addition, the Universal Championship was not really featured either because of a lack of presence from those wrestlers. That said, the pace was incredible. This felt a lot like old Attitude Era shows, where it was 2 hours of everything crammed in, short matches, to make up for the fact that we're getting a lot of people on the card. Even though we had short matches, they were good matches. And I do think they stand the test of time and likely will do going forwards. Cesaro versus Gable, definitely worth checking out. My only negative here was I have to ask, should Jeff Hardy be reliving the same storyline that he has done so many times, especially when it's so personal? That said, lot of positives far outweighing that. Deville and Evans, great work. Cesaro Gable, great work. The match between Sheamus and Bryan, fantastic. The Battle Royal. It's been a long time since we've had a bad Battle Royal in the WWE, I tell you that. My Twitter poll after the show gave SmackDown a 45% great rating. That is a top rating for the poll. Followed by, in second place, a 31% good rating. That is a 76% positive. Great rating for this SmackDown. I wholeheartedly agree. Tremendous numbers, and it shows just how fun this was. I do recommend, if you haven't watched it, you go back and watch it, because it was just a joy in most places. Very different, very unusual in some places, but fun nonetheless. That's it for today's SmackDown review. Please do like if you enjoy this sort of content, subscribe for more. I have been Tom Colohue, and thank you very much for watching.